Hello, greetings. In this video, I'm going to tell you all about my experience with nude figure drawing. The kind where you pose perfectly, like in a chair, in poses, very still. And people look at you and they draw you and it's really quiet and you're just naked and that's what happens. And it's all for the sake of art. So no judgment there. I'm Karina. I make videos about my life. Welcome to my channel. I just got some new kittens, so if you see kittens, then just tell them that you love them through the screen. So a few things I'm going to talk about is one, what actually happens in these art modeling posing experiences, these sessions. Two, I'm going to talk about why I do it. And three, I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of being a figure drawing model. So what happens in the figure drawing model session happens in a very varied way depending on who the monitor is. Every class I've gone to has a monitor, which is just like the main person facilitating the class. Basically what they do is they are the communicator between me, the model, and the students, the artists that are drawing me. And they do a pretty good job with maintaining like a professional environment, thank God. So far, I've had good experiences with monitors and it's been good. There are some like rules that it comes with this stuff. For instance, artists are not allowed to talk to the model if they have concerns about the pose or anything like that. The monitor is the one that's supposed to relay that information from the artist to the model and vice versa, just to keep that professional, undistracting sort of relationship. I like a lot of direction. I like when the monitor tells me exactly how they want me to pose. I can't really see myself. There aren't any mirrors around. So it's nice for the monitor to put me in a position with their lighting and usually with several different props for the artist to mostly benefit so that they can practice their art, whether it's drawing, painting, whatever it is. So it's kind of nice to have a good monitor with lots of experience in this kind of setting. Really, I'm doing a service for the class to be able to observe a human body the way it is and all the shadows and the light that come with a normal human body. So there aren't a lot of the standards or the pressures of regular like modeling that you see. It's just like real authentic human body shit. So I'm usually like in the center on like a stage kind of thing. There's lots of props. You do different pose. I sit on the props and I lean back or whatever the pose might be. And I'm surrounded by like easels and working benches and things like that where the artists sit from different angles, whatever preference of angle they have, so that they can do their drawing. In my experience, the modeling sessions I've done can last anywhere from 3 to 6 hours. I do get breaks in the beginning when people are warming up. It's a good warm up for me too, because I will do a pose for like a minute. We'll switch poses, do that for another minute. We'll do that for about 30 minutes or so. And then we'll get into like the longer poses. The longer poses, I'll do the same pose for like 3 hours, but every 20 minutes I get a break for like 5 or 10 minutes. And honestly, like I know that when you're doing this kind of work, it just looks like the model is just sitting there perfectly still doing nothing. But inside, I have to have a lot of attention on my body, what I'm doing, making sure I'm not doing any adjustments or breathing unconsciously and changing that pose, because the consistency of that pose is important for especially like newer artists to be able to document or illustrate what I look like in a specific, very still pose. Which is interesting to me because humans aren't still life, so it's kind of hard to be perfectly the same position, because sometimes like if I let my thoughts get away from me, which I try not to, I might just unconsciously like hunch over or like sit up or do like whatever, and that's not what my job is. I need to be like in the same kind of character, the same kind of mode for these long stretches of time. So I have to like kind of hold that same mental state as well, just to like keep the energy of my body the same and consistent for these artists. Another thing is I don't ever know what the artist is working on. The class is for them. They've usually paid however much money they've paid for this class to have a nude figure model so that they can draw it. Sometimes I know artists like to just work on hands. Sometimes they're just working on my face or my head or my body. But every artist is doing their own kind of thing, so I can't just pay attention to one part of my body or just my eye line and my direction of my face. I have to make sure every toe, every hand, every finger is like in the right spot, so whoever might be working on that part of my body doesn't get interrupted by my movement. When I do long poses, I use like masking tape usually provided by the monitor, to tape where my hands are, where my feet are, and any kinds of like wherever my joints are, to help me get back into the pose after a long break. Another question, I do feel like there are creeps that come to these classes, and it's a varied group of people, young, old, middle-aged artists from varying degrees of professionality in their craft. I've been a girl my whole life, so like, you know what I mean? Everyone kind of is there for the same reason though, I'm assuming. I've never gotten any overtly creepy vibes, but there have been like some artists where it feels a little awkward, and that's kind of why I really adhere to the professionality between the model and the artist, where I don't really talk to anybody, and I also am not making eye contact with anybody. They actually have a sign on the wall at a lot of these art classes. The sign will be like, don't make eye contact or stretch or anything like that, to misconstrue, which sounds kind of misogynistic. I mean, kind of weird to me, but I can see how it makes sense. Also, during these breaks, they're very adamant about making sure that you have like a cover or a dress or like a sweater or something to put on between poses, between sessions, because they don't want you just to be naked all the time unless it's for the pose itself, which I don't mind being naked, but I know it can be weird to other people if it's not in like a professional manner, in this case for the figure drawing. For the most part, everyone is super professional and friendly though, so I haven't had any bad experiences, thank God, yet. So now let's get into like why I do this. I live in a very artsy city, and they have all different kinds of art events and things like that, professional artists. And I know they have a lot of art classes here, a lot of art centers, and where I live. And there is a running list of local figure drawing models that are like, okay with being naked, okay with drawing, know how to sit for long periods of time. And I got on that list by chance while working a art market event. One of the older professional artists, who is female, thank God. I know that's weird, but like it helped that it was a female that put me on this model list in terms of me feeling safe. So now every like few weeks or maybe even a couple months at a time, I'll get random castings. I'll get random gigs to go and sit naked and do the posing thing for different schools, for different art centers, for different organizations in the area. There's quite a few actually where I live. Shortly after I got my first gig, I thought it was really empowering for some reason. I thought it was a really mindful and beneficial for me, and I was also providing a service to these artists, which I thought was really cool. I have a long history of like body dysmorphic stuff, and I have a tendency to fall into disordered eating and disordered exercising, and I've been like that pretty much my whole life, so it's something I have to watch out for. Not all figure modeling gigs are nude. So sometimes you can wear clothes. It's very rare. Most people are paying you as a model to be naked because not everybody wants to do that. And I will say the first time that I got a gig to do nude modeling, it was in like Ybor City. It was in like a party part of town. I don't know. I got a bad vibe from it. And I was also in this season where I was still kind of struggling, it's like up and down. So I was struggling a lot with like being naked in front of people and what other people would think of my body and things like that. And so I said no. Later down the road, I felt more comfortable with my body when the next gig opportunity came up, and I said yes. And it was a little uncomfortable, but honestly, once I get into that pose, I am like a whole different character, and I'm trying to just make it as objective and professional as possible. Some of you guys might know, if you've been watching me for a while, that I had an OnlyFans and I did different kinds of things that were a little less wholesome than this kind of a gig. So I began to separate like who I was before to this kind of gig now, where it's for the art and it's not for any kind of weird, sketchy, porny kind of thing. And that really empowered me as well, to see that I had done a similar gig before, but now I'm doing it in a more wholesome way, which shows a little bit of change in my life. I don't know. This could be a whole other video, the body dysmorphia stuff. So I will just say that like, I don't really look in the mirror very often. I haven't been weighed at a doctor's office in years. And this opportunity to be a nude figure drawing model really helped with my self-esteem and appreciating my body for how it is, since the artist really just wanted to study the body and illustrate it as it is, and to appreciate that and honor that, instead of like wanting to change or draw me in ways that they don't see me, like in exaggerated kind of figures. It's all very like realistic, and I found that really helpful for my like mental health. At this point in my life, like when I first got this gig, I had been kind of insecure. I was kind of in a low point in my body dysmorphia, like eating disorder journey. I wasn't going out with friends if I had like a bad body day. I wasn't like going swimming or going to the beach if I had to wear like bikinis. I wasn't comfortable with that. I was hurt and I felt like punishing myself, and so I did, and I was sick of it. You know, I was really sick of living that way and punishing my body for what it is and like what it looks like. And I think it's actually brought me so far, and it's relatively healthy for all of the trash that I've put it through. And I had to make a change, you know, and one of the first steps, besides like, you know, regularly exercising and eating when I'm hungry and things like that, was doing this nude figure drawing modeling situation. It helped me see that other people appreciated my body, and I should appreciate my body the way it was too. It was an opportunity to throw myself into a little exposure therapy, if you will. I'm so glad I did. I see my body now as a natural part of life and art that should be honored and appreciated. I've also made some wonderful connections with some artists that have been priceless through these experiences and these events. And I got to put myself in environments where I'm a little uncomfortable, but I'm growing with people that have, you know, similar creative minds and things like that. And that has been a big game changer for me, to see that other people were acting in alignment with their passions of art. Basically, figure modeling put me in front of genuine, like-minded people that were getting better at their craft. And that's what I'm trying to do here on YouTube, with my music, with other like creative endeavors. And it is so inspiring to be around people that are doing the same thing. It really helped me get over my body fears of being seen and judged, and fear of my body being looked at or judged. It's mine, and I'm so grateful that it functions and it can be of service to these artists. The pros and cons. Sometimes I'm on my period and I get super self-conscious about it. So every break I go to like check to make sure I'm not like bleeding. They will let me wear a nude thong, like very minimal coverage, when I'm on my period. So that's a kind of a con. Another con, I get paid a little less than $20 an hour. I think the living wage in my area right now is like $19 an hour, but it's such a vulnerable kind of state to be naked in front of strangers for such long periods of time, and it's pretty taxing on the body. Honestly, like I'll always have like nerve pain or like joint pain afterwards, and I just feel exhausted afterwards. So I do feel like monetarily I'm a little underpaid. Pros, I do get paid. It's not like just a volunteer kind of service. I do get paid for it. I get paid in different opportunities. Every time I do a gig, I get recommended by somebody, the monitor or something, to do another gig, so that helps. Another pro, it's just a time for me to really just be present in the moment. You know, I spend so much time trying to do all these different kinds of things. I'm in school, I'm part of a lot of different curriculums in my life right now, and it's easy for me to get caught up in being busy and doing, and this is like a designated time for me to just be like still and in the moment and present with my body. Another great pro is that I have a totally different point of view on my body. After, like I talked about this a little bit before, but I have a whole different point of view on my body and its purpose. A fuller view of it, you know. I grew up thinking that my body had to look a certain way and that it was used to please men or to look good and all this stuff. And now I can kind of see in a more holistic way how I can honor and see my body from the perspective of being natural and part of life and art and all that stuff that's bigger than just like sex and body dysmorphia and looking good and losing weight. Now I can see and love my body as a natural piece of art, not in just a sexual or a sensual way. I made this video because whenever I tell people a little bit about what I did over the weekend and I did a gig like this, people have tons of questions about it. I hope I answered some questions that you might have. If you have an opportunity to do this and it's something you would be interested in, I say give it a shot. Not everybody wants to be doing this stillness, nakedness in front of strangersness thing for such a long stretch of time, especially. So I would contact like any local art schools around you or any art centers or classes and things like that and see if they have a need for nude models, because they usually do. They have never asked me or required for me to be a certain weight or a certain height or look a certain way. They've never had those kinds of standards, which I think is beautiful. It has nothing to do with beauty standards. They typically just want to see a real, in the flesh, human body, the way it is, you know, like imperfections and all. And that's something that is so rare in society today. I think it is so important for people to see bodies and human being bodies in the flesh for what they are, and to honor that and to present that. So do not forget to subscribe, please. See y'all next time.